If your argument is convincing and I see evidence behind what you're saying, there's nothing to say that I wouldn't try that.
I would be disrespectful to my members only if I didn't speak plainly with you, but I think you're a friend and you know how to take this. So
Well, hello. Come right on in. You're at Father Fish.
Oh, well, now we got somebody with us we really need to talk to. Mexicali Fish Keeper is here. There he is. Goodness.
How you doing, sir?
How are you?
Good. Can't complain. Life is great.
Listen, I was so excited watching your stream. Was it Friday night?
Yeah, it was something, all right.
Oh, man, it was a battle royal.
Yeah, well, yeah, it got to that point, but I really wish we would have been able to have a actual conversation.
But that kind of thing happens all the time. I think part of the issue is that it's a hermit's hobby. It really is. It's a hobby we do all by ourselves, and we get very protective of that. And we get very wrathy about it because we know what we do and we know how to do it, and by God, we're going to do it the way we do it.
I'm not married to a single idea. If your argument is convincing and I see evidence behind what you're saying, there's nothing to say that I wouldn't try that. And as a matter of fact, all my aquariums are a reflection of that, because over the course of the years, as I hear new theories or new ideas surface, I like to try them out for my own personal knowledge to see if what they're saying is true. And if not, where are the downfalls in those philosophies?
See what works for you, right? Funk's here.
all right, I don't know how long I can stay because I just ate a big bowl of Spanish corned beef hash and rice, and I got the itis.
The itchy anus.
Yeah. So first of all, let's go into the whole aspect, which I find a valid question. If I have an aquarium, a closed system aquarium, and all I'm doing is adding water as it evaporates, nitrates, well, you kind of take care of nitrates with all the plants, but all the other stuff that accumulates, how is it that you're able to add fish in there when you have this tank that has been just sitting in its own juices for so long? The fish get accustomed to it. How come they don't die immediately when they enter this water?
Because of the biological activity of the substrate and the plants.
Is there a difference between, let's say, the water at the pet store and the water in your aquarium?
Of course.
Is it so much of a difference that it would kill a fish instantly out of shock?
Rarely.
And I really don't understand the science. I just know you guys been doing it. So I'm like, it's possible. I don't know how, but it's possible.
Get you. He doesn't understand. He talks about the science, but he really doesn't know the science because he doesn't understand the effect of a biological system, a fully blown biological system. Even this, he says he wants to restrict his system to certain kinds of bacteria and not other kinds.
Yeah, I don't.
The reality is that's a fool's errand. You can't do it. Bacteria can't be controlled that way. You either have all or you have nothing. You've either got a system where all kinds of bacteria are flourishing, controlling each other in the process, and that's really the key. Creating an environment of diversity allows you to have the kind of balance that exists in nature.
These systems, the natural systems, supposedly you're not supposed to do water changes, but I don't know where they're coming up with that idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just because you don't do water changes every week doesn't mean that at some point you're doing a water change in those systems.
That's true.
I mean, I keep something that I would consider natural, but I do water changes. I might not do them with the frequency of maybe somebody that's keeping discus, but even then, it all depends on what you're trying to do. And what I was trying to explain to him too, it's going to be very different. The frequency for the water changes, like he had a tank full of Oscars. Yes, you're probably going to have to do water changes because the bioload of those fish is going to be a lot greater than my tank with guppies. You know, I could prolong and extend how often I do those water changes. Now, when you have plants and you have these other systems in there, it just helps to prolong the time that it takes you to do those water changes.
I mean, as far as water changes are concerned, water changes are fundamental in any kind of body of water. Now, there are people who are able to keep some fish in an aquarium with plants for a year, 2 years with no water change. And that's reasonable to do if it's a very limited kind of environment. In other words, a very few fish. If you got a lot of activity, you're not going to be able to pull that off. There are times when it's critical to do it. You do it in small amounts if necessary, and maybe more frequently in small amounts until you get things stabilized. This tank I was just showing, this tank I've got real heavy tannins in, needs a water change. I'm going to be able to do 10%, probably every day for 3 or 4 days to get it back to normal. It's yeah, go ahead.
But what do you have on filtration for that tank?
I have a canister and a sponge filter.
I would be disrespectful to my members only if I didn't speak plainly with you, but I think you're a friend and you know how to take this. So a lot of your thumbnails, I think people are just looking at your thumbnails and looking at your title and they figure they got you pegged. Never do a water change, ever, 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 ever.
Stop doing water changes. Stop.
Yeah. So, I mean, me, you, and even Mexicali, I talk to Mexicali all the time about channel strategy and stuff like that. And listen, y'all, thumbnails is a big reason why people's channels grow. It's probably the number one reason why people's channels grow, because it's what gets you to click on that. So you have to sometimes, you know, be a little sensational. I'm not saying do clickbait. I'm not. But sometimes you have to be a little sensational. So a lot of this reputation that you have is somewhat of your making.
Oh, no question.
But at the same time, they should take the time to go, hold up, let me see what this dude's about.
Yeah.
Because this guy has a thumbnail that says never do a water change. And I think, you know,
if you actually watch the video, you'd realize that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is not doing it 24 hours a day. I mean, I have used the YouTube to try to build a business.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing that, I've done things that were deliberately outlandish and deliberately controversial. And that's why I've done it.
As every big YouTuber has.
But I've tried to be really serious about the content.
Yeah.
So I haven't done it in the content.
Yeah. Well, every big YouTuber has. Period.
I've always had a question, and I don't know, because it seems to people think that you say this. I don't know if it's true or not, but their argument is that they say that every fish should be kept in the type of systems that you talk about. Now, I know that some fish behavior is not conducive to doing a dirted tank just because of the way they go about things, you know, like Oscars or the big cichlids that like to dig into the ground. I know there's ways about it, and I know you were showing that Severum tank that you had there. But is that really your philosophy, Father Fish, that any fish can be kept, an arowana can be kept in a system like this?
An arowana would be the easiest fish to keep in it because it doesn't ever disturb anything.
Oh, okay.
I think I've talked to Father Fish, and just to add on to Mexicali, this is a great example of what people are saying, like you can't put every fish. I happen to think that if the tank is big enough, you can put any fish in a dirty tank. That's my personal belief. If the tank is big enough, you can.
If you can't, then that fish cannot live in nature.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I had a dirty tank. Father Fish helped me with it. It was awesome. I had biches in there. My biches was loving it. The plants was everywhere. No problem. I ended up putting Jack Dempsey's in there. And like you were saying, you have to put some type of hardscape because my Jack Dempsey did kind of wiggle stuff out the way. I had to put a piece of slate. He was looking for something hard. I didn't have anything hard. And I was like, oh, I got to put something hard. But Dan Connor from Consolidated Fish Farms, who was a terrible influence on me because he keeps giving me fish. He gave me a Hopalo catfish.
Oh my.
Now my tank had matured enough that it had little worms growing in the dirt that would pop up and wiggle around. I would never.
Right.
Yeah, it turned into a mud puddle. That Hopalo just dug everything up.
They do. Yeah.
So, but like Mexicali was saying is, your thoughts on any fish. I tell people, I was like, I think Father Fish would say, there's always variables that you have to overcome and make changes on the fly. That's my personal view from talking to you. But people seem to think that you could have a 55 gallon and put an Oscar in there with a dirty tank and never have any issues.
Well, you have to accommodate the fish.
Yeah.
And you can accommodate it within the parameters of what you're trying to do. And 99% of the time it'll work. 1% of the time it just won't work. Big koi would be a good example. It's really hard to keep large koi in the dirted planted tank. I wouldn't even really try it.
But you acknowledge it.
I got a question for you, Lou.
Sure.
I know you said your experience spans about 7 years, roughly. Now, during that course of the time, has your concept of keeping aquariums evolved, or has it always been?
Oh yeah, very much
Okay.
so. Yeah, absolutely. I'm nowhere near where I was. I can't say 10 years ago because I've been on this natural aquarium kick now for about 25 years. Prior to that, I was doing undergravel filtration. I was doing bare tanks. I was doing gravel. I was doing, all the other stuff everybody's doing. I've done all of that. I started doing this, frankly, because of Wallstead. Because with her system, she couldn't keep it going more than a year. It just ran out of energy. So I took that on as a challenge, and that's really where I've been at for the last 25 years. I built a supplement that guarantees adequate nutrient in the soil for a minimum of 5 years. I've developed the concept of capping with sand, not gravel, in order to be able to prevent water from washing out the nutrients into the water column. I've developed a notion of what the depth of that soil needs to be, what the depth of the sand needs to be in order to make it stable. In other words, I put 25 years into researching this and working with it and refining it to the point where it can work. And it can work effectively for anybody who tries it. I've got brand new people setting up their very first tank, and 3 months later, their tank looks like a master aquarist. It works. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, you gotta work it though. I mean, you gotta do the right stuff. You can't never do water changes.